Rayman 3 is a classic game in many a gamer's heart. It takes the limbless hero on a journey through a set of stunning environments, thrilling encounters and challenging platforming segments. Starting his adventure in the Fairy Council, Rayman fights his way through Clearly Forest, the Bog of Murk, the Land of the Living Dead and the desert of the Canaran in search of a doctor who can help Glowbox. Then after a challenging sidetrack in the longest shortcut and a snowy race in the summit beyond the clouds, Rayman and Glowbox must battle their way through the Hoodlum Headquarters before finally facing Reflux and Andre in the Tower of Lepus. I've made a couple of community polls here on YouTube to get a gauge of what worlds are people's favourites and least favourites, because I realised I just don't know. I love Rayman 3 so much, but aside from the occasional comment I'll see, I've got no idea what the general consensus is for each world. So I plan on dropping my own opinions here and putting each world in Rayman 3 on a tier list, which I'll properly rank at the end, all of course in my own opinion. Now this may be a bit more of a self-indulgent video than usual, I just really want to talk about this game and the amazing levels presented in it, but I hope this can start some sort of discussion in the comments and maybe take some people on a nostalgic trip through a game they may not have played for the last 20 years. You know, if you could drop me a like and a subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. So, without further ado, the Fairy Council. What can I say? You're coming off the back of Rayman 2, a critically acclaimed adventure that showcased such a wide variety of truly creative and magical settings. Where do you go from there? How do you transition from the magical Rayman 2 journey to the more angsty, combat-focused adventure that Rayman 3 offers up? You start in the Fairy Council, that's how. This nighttime world gives off the same vibe as the Fairy Glade from Rayman 2, but during the evening. Which I suppose it kind of is. I'm not really sure the Fairy Glade and the Fairy Council are the same thing, but they certainly have a similar vibe and Murphy's there either way. It's magical, it's full of nature, mythical plants and creatures everywhere. The world starts off so beautifully and throws the player into what I think is a great introduction to the mechanics of Rayman 3. You run around with no limbs, kicking gnomes and collecting gems. You have a chance to fight up close with no risk of getting hurt really, because you know, the gnomes don't fight back. You play around with the combo meter Murphy just mentioned, you take on platforming challenges that introduce you to the helicopter hair and jumping, before you can fall back on the ledge grabbing mechanic introduced once you get your hands back, all while Murphy has a meta argument with the game's manual. It's a really fun introduction to the world and the characters from the get-go, and I love it. No, wait, hang on, there's that on-rails section at the start, isn't there? Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb here, pun intended, and say that I actually quite like it. I know the mechanic is never used again, and it does feel a little out of place to have this on-rails section before any other gameplay, but for me it just doesn't matter. This segment synergizes the high-action ending to the intro cutscene with the slower-paced, more calming intro to the game's real mechanics. You take control of Rayman early on in the middle of the action, the stakes are high, the game will be action-packed and exciting, the cutscene didn't lie to you, but don't worry, we're not throwing you in the deep end yet, you'll get a chance to learn to play first, we're just giving you a taste of the vibe to come. That's what I get from it at least, you know, you get to be hands-on without sacrificing the much-needed slower-paced introduction shortly after. Maybe it would have been interesting to see this on-rails gameplay come back, perhaps as a mini-game, but honestly, I don't think it matters. I don't think the first playable section of a game needs to represent what's still to come. I know a lot of people say differently, but in this case, I think it works. I've always loved how the game starts. Following the regaining of Rayman's hands from Glowbox, the game treats you to a journey through the crumbling Fairy Council with the first introduction to real combat where the hoodlums might fight back. This is paced perfectly in my opinion. There are some small areas of exploration, giving the player a taste of the kind of beaten path straying they should expect to do if they want to find everything, but it's not too unforgiving. The combat is never difficult, and the lore is never too much. You are eased into the situation and the stakes of Andre being loose as you play. You see the hoodlums start to appear and wreak havoc. You see the environment crumbling, you hear Murphy start freaking out. It's all done very well in my opinion. I wish I had something negative to say, because it does look like I'm just going to gush about the game for the entire video. But honestly, for the Fairy Glade, I can't think of anything negative. Upon reaching the heart of the world, you'll find some tintsies and you get a little lore dump before setting off on the real journey and leaving the big mouth tutorial guide behind. And of course, to top it all off, within the first 2 hours of gameplay, you get to experience a jazzy skateboarding level. Man, I love this game. The Fairy Council, in my opinion, is just a perfect way to start a video game. It tells the player the situation. This is more action-packed than Rayman 2. Here are the stakes, here's how to play, here's what to expect. Now, go have fun. All while never talking down to the player, never holding their hand too much, never compromising the beauty and intuitive level design. I'm not going to say it's the best world, spoiler alert I guess, but you already knew that this is not the best world. but I don't think you could possibly improve on this world as the introduction to Rayman 3. I absolutely love it. And of course, I haven't mentioned the music yet. You can hear it, man, it speaks for itself. It's truly gorgeous. I'm not even sure I'm going to talk about the music much in this entire video, because it's going to be playing in the background, and you already know Rayman 3 has one of the best soundtracks ever. Anyway, I am putting this one in A tier. I wouldn't change a thing, but it is a tutorial world, so while it does that perfectly, if I really want to play Rayman 3, it's typically the rest of the game that I want to sink my teeth into. Being a tutorial is a necessary evil, and this world is just brought down a slight peg only for that. It's still near perfect though, and it feels wrong not giving it an S tier, but you get it. You get it. No tutorial level is the best level in a game. I'm sure you understand. Oh man, clearly Forest. Where to begin? This world continues introducing new features and mechanics to the player, almost like a follow-on from the tutorial, while also kicking it up a gear. This is where we get to properly use 4 of the 5 power-ups, and this world absolutely benefits from that. Each segment, or sub-level if you want to call it, in this world feels a little samey in my opinion, actually. Of course this doesn't include the boss fight, but we'll get to that in a minute. Though this samey vibe is not the end of the world. It serves as a blank canvas in a way, for the player to truly explore the power-ups and new enemies without getting overwhelmed. You know, imagine if every sub-level was a boss fight and also you're learning how to use the lockjaw power-up, for example. Yeah, being a bit samey, being a bit of a blank canvas is a necessary evil, like the Fairy Glade being a tutorial. Mind you, these levels are of course still a ton of fun. The Hoodlum encounters are enjoyable, the teensy chests are hard to... Chests? Cages. The teensy cages are fun to find, the hidden green gems are present but not too intimidating or insane to find yet, and the overall exploration is up to bit, so it's still easy enough to keep on top of, but more of a challenge. Clearly Forest itself is a very pretty, somewhat realistic world. Now obviously realistic is a poor word to use in the same conversation as anything to do with Rayman, but I mean this world, if you were to take a random screenshot, it could be easily mistaken for a game set on Earth, in a jungle setting for example. There are no immediate signs of magical fantasy worlds outside of the characters and collectibles that will be on screen. This isn't a bad thing necessarily for the record, but I'd argue that this makes Clearly Forest the most forgettable world. It's a load of fun, I just don't think any of the sections of it stand out to me other than the 3 instances of unique gameplay. The swimming section on the waterfall, the missile room and the boss fight. Because yes, for the first time in Rayman 3 we encounter a boss. It's a funky one for sure. It's a smaller Hoodlum using 2 enormous legs to stomp down on Rayman. Excellent really. And when you defeat him using the missiles we first played with earlier in this world, we get a mini-game style thing where you get to go around stomping on Hoodlums yourself. This game is fun and it knows it. You know, I think this boss fight is the epitome of that. You defeat your first boss, and where other games may leave you wishing you could play as that boss, Rayman 3 just lets you do it. I love it. So yeah, there's a lot to love in this world, and I feel unfair calling it forgettable, because in a lot of ways it isn't. You know, the first time you use the missile, the room where you keep getting that red power up, the first swinging section, it's all so much fun. But I guess for me it represents Rayman 3 at its most toned down. The levels are the most normal, linear, you know, if that's the right word. They don't go out of their way to exude the same vibe or creativity we'd already seen and would later see. So yeah, it's a great follow-up world to the Fairy Glade, and I'm not saying I don't like it, but for me it's just on the weaker end of Rayman 3's worlds. Even the music is arguably the most forgettable, but still really, really good. As one final note before I place this on the list, I just want to say that while I have said the word forgettable here, it's only in the context of Rayman 3. If you take any other forest-themed level in any 3D platformer, they all fade into insignificance compared to Clearly Forest. The world of Rayman 3 is so alive it just makes other games look pathetic, even taking one of the more basic Rayman 3 levels. So I'm going to place this on B tier. My complaints feel harsh, but I know what's to come, I know what this game has to offer, and I just don't think it'd be fair on some of the later worlds if I were to give this world higher. It's a giant compliment to the game, really. Oh man, the Bog of Merc. You know what I just said about knowing the rest of the game has a lot to offer? Yeah, I didn't mean this world. Look, I'm going to sound really harsh here, but I don't think the Bog of Merc feels finished. In some places it shines so brightly and I love it, but in others I can't help but just feel a disconnect, you know? A plethora of ideas thrown into the level with no substance holding them together in a way that the clearly forest does it. This world introduces us to the final power-up, the helicopter. This is used very briefly. Like, I understand why it needed to be introduced sooner rather than later, but honestly there wasn't a lot of point doing it right at the start of this world. Following this, we're quickly thrown into a boss battle with the crazy soup lady. This, I love. The game not being afraid to throw a new encounter at you at any time is great. I love it. After that we explore her house a little and jump into a mirror, for some reason. I enjoy looking around the house, but I'll admit it is a little undercooked. No real hidden areas, nothing to do other than jump in the mirror and collect a few gems. Following this is another murky section that looks entirely distinguishable from the other murky levels. It does feature some fun hoodlum battles though. Using the tornado power up to beat hoodlums on stilts is still always very funny. There are some nice platforming sections too, with the occasional hidden area waiting to be found, and the music throughout this part is quite something. I guess my biggest issue before the mansion is that none of it quite feels unique or polished enough. It's a strange criticism considering what I just said, there were too many ideas thrown in the level at once, but I just don't think it comes together enough to make for a compelling level, you know? Like those little rock throwing hoodlums, they aren't fun to fight. It's a cool different encounter, but after the first one they're just frustrating and not in a good way. And the platforming is mostly uninspired with a few good moments here or there. It's just not it. I don't know, it's hard to explain. But then there's Razov the Hunter. What happened? You've got an enormous mansion, you have a boss fight, and this is what you made? Other than the single cage behind this painting, there is no reason to go anywhere in this mansion other than directly towards Razov. Nothing to explore, nothing to discover, nothing to collect, bar some yellow gems in some rooms. Just a boss battle, but, I mean, it's at least a good one, right? Oh man, okay. Like, I don't hate it, I just don't like it. The first part, I mean, you have to chase him, get into a room with him, hit him, chase him, rinse, repeat, and if you're unlucky he'll try and shoot you and you have to wait behind his various decorations. It's tedious and it's not very fun and it's a huge waste of an otherwise very cool level that's really well designed. Imagine so much more hide and seek based things in the mansion, how many secrets you can hide, how many hoodlums can be in secret rooms. I don't know, I'm going off script here, I don't like this level. I can't help but feel there was so much more planned for this level before resorting to just being that boss fight. Maybe I'm wrong. But there is a saving grace actually. Once you defeat Razov the Hunter, you get to fight him again, which might not sound good because I just said it wasn't good the first time. Only this time he's embracing his Miley Cyrus and he's on a wrecking ball. Now I'm not going to say this is the best boss fight in the world or the game or anything like that, but it absolutely does save the level. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I like it. It's fun. It's actually challenging in places. It's satisfying when you land a hit. I like this boss fight. So yeah, Bog of Merc annoys me. In some ways it is really cool, and some of my favourite secrets are hidden in this world actually, and a couple of fun boss fights are here and there, but among them are such uninspired encounters, platforming sections, and that mansion boss fight. It's just a very inconsistent level that feels like an afterthought. Like, I'm glad it's there, as I do fundamentally still like the world. Funnily enough, I like every world. Rayman 3 is one of my favourite games for a reason, you know. Anyway, this world gets a C. It's not bad at all. I wouldn't be happier if the game was missing this world. I just don't think it's anywhere close to the quality of some of the other worlds to come. Especially the Land of the Livid Dead. So, S tier. Yep, it's perfect. Land of the Livid Dead is a tremendously crafted fantasy world to play through and enjoy. Everything from the melancholy soundtrack, the onslaught of challenging fights interspersed between the first really engaging platforming sections of the game, the boss fights, the tower, just everything in this world is fantastic. I'm going to gush about the atmosphere for a minute because I just adore it so much. You enter the world to this Tinsy themed area, cave markings, Stonehenge style rock formations, birds that you otherwise wouldn't notice if Globox didn't try talking to them as part of background dialogue. It's the little things like that that really set this game apart. The solemn Tinsy ghosts that you rescue. This world is both depressing and stunning, overrun with hoodlums. In fact, this is the world that introduces you to the most new kinds of hoodlums to fight, and it does it in full force. The waterfalls, the nature, the animals, it's so pretty and alive, yet so scary and cynical at the same time. It's such a well-crafted world that evokes such conflicting emotions. On one hand you want to live there, and on the other hand you're journeying through the most dangerous part of your adventure yet. And that damn tower, man, I love it! Every time I play the game and I first see the tower, I always stop and I just look for a minute and appreciate it. I don't know, it's stunning. The pace is so perfectly handled in this world as well. Intense moments of combat followed by slower platforming segments just drive that conflicting vibe the world has to offer. Exciting and slow, stunning but bleak, truly amazing, honestly. In terms of level design, I don't know what can be added here. It's fun from start to finish, thoroughly engaging, filled with secrets and areas to explore, exciting combat encounters, a fun underwater boss battle, goofy shoe bumper car sections that I will still defend. It is just such a perfect representation of everything Rayman 3 strives to be throughout the whole game. The music, again, oh god, it speaks for itself here. One of the best video game soundtracks you'll ever hear is contained almost entirely just in this world. It is stunning, I love it so much. This world ups the ante in a way it really needed to after the Bog of Merc. It gets tough, like really tough, and there are plenty of new enemy types to keep you on your toes. It's full force and I could not be happier about it. I did a quick community post to ask what people's favourite levels were, and I put this as one of the options because I figured it would be on the more popular side. And to no one's surprise, it won the poll hands down. The Land of the Living Dead is one of the best worlds / levels in any 3D platformer I've ever played. The Land of the Living Dead is Rayman 3. It is 2 hours of perfection and I love it. So I've already said this world is S tier. I'll rank them all at the end when we're finished, but this is far and away the best part yet of an already excellent game. But can it keep up this momentum? Well, I'm going to say something controversial. I think it absolutely does keep up the momentum. I've heard complaints here and there about the desert of the Canaran, and I guess I do get some of the issues some people have, but I love it, man. Following a green and blue nature-driven, hoodlum-driven world, we get thrown into an orange desert leading into a cave filled with terrifying, unbeatable enemies. It doesn't get much different than that, and oh my god, it is so good. It gets your heart rate going, it's tense, it's scary, it's atmospheric, ugh. I think it's on par with the Land of the Living Dead in terms of atmosphere and world design. It's menacing and claustrophobic, and it needs to be, even if it is so different from the Land of the Living Dead. Very quickly, this world goes from fighting a couple of hoodlums with confidence to running for dear life and genuinely being scared. In case you didn't know or you need your memory jogged, the Canaran cannot be defeated. They will kill you if they get you. You have no choice but to run, and this is such an amazing change of pace. And for the record, if you played this game as a kid, they were scary, right? It's not just me. Like, I had to have my mum play it with me because they were terrifying. All guns blazing, action-packed fight? Not anymore, pal. You have to be stealthy. You have to distract these guys, you have to find other routes, you have to hide while they walk past. The Canaran are not to be messed with, and maybe it's because I was a child when I first played this, but I feel as if the game perfectly sets up these guys to be monstrously scary. The harsh change in tone following the Living Dead gives you a slight whiplash, actually. The threats from the Canaran, the warnings from the Tinsies, the open areas where you have all the space you could need to get away from them, yet you still run for your life and nearly get caught. It's just so cleverly done. Of course, the platforming here is a little more prominent because now where you can't fight, you must traverse. It works. With this, there's room for a lot more hidden areas and secrets, and to this day, I'm still certain I've missed some in this world. In between these tense sections are moments of calm where you must transport an egg to a pressure— oh good lord! Yep, those things are back. Oh, yay. Joking aside, these sections are great. The whole world is great. I love it. It's slow, it's scary, it's intuitively designed. The atmosphere is so rich. I love the desert of the Canaran. And then there's Reflux. That is how you do a boss fight. This, right here, this is how you do it. They do not make them like this anymore. Man, this boss fight is amazing. I love it. The music goes hard, the boss is difficult, the stakes are high, the moments following the fight are like a breath of fresh air. It's just so perfectly constructed. Man, I love the Reflux fight. It is nuts. Oh my god. You know what? I am going to finish recording this and I'm going to play the entire game again before recording the next section about the next world. just to get to this damn fight because I love it so much. The final part of this world returns to the standard Hoodlum fights with a bit of platforming. It becomes clear that the game will get harder following this as new Hoodlum enemies show up, and you gain the ability to turn black lums into red lums once defeating them. A power like this is always a sign that things will get worse, because if you can create your own health, it's because you need to. So yeah, Desert of the Canaran is, unsurprisingly, based on what I've just said, an S tier. What a phenomenal mid-game Rayman 3 has on display with this and the Land of the Living Dead. So I guess I have to ask the question again. Can Rayman 3 keep up the momentum again? Hell yeah it can! The longest shortcut is true to its name in that it is barely a shortcut. However, it is the shortest world in the game, consisting of only 3 sub-levels. This isn't a bad thing though. The world throws Rayman into a set of platforming challenges that progressively get harder and a bit trippier, I guess. Once again, the shoe bumper cars minigame makes a return, and then you have to make good use of your power-up skills to swing quickly to the top of a large room. Ultimately, the goal is to collect every crown and open a door so Glowbox can pretend that he's useful. In other words, these levels are challenge maps. They're a lovely change of pace from the menacing Desert of the Canaran that ended with a high-energy boss fight. This peaceful world gives you a chance to relax and put some real focus on the platforming. In fact, this is far and away the world that puts the most focus on platforming, obviously. I've always wondered if this world was one of the first they made as a way to do a sort of stress test on the movement system before entering full level design. It does a bit of everything, you know, ledge grabbing, precision jumping, rope swinging, sliding, gliding, strafing. It really wouldn't surprise me if these are beta levels that got turned into a full world beyond just, you know, a movement test, a tech test if you will. Anyway, there are secrets to be found here, and if you don't find them, the chances are you're getting a 0% score on each level, because there's sort of just like one big secret to find in each level with no other collectibles. It's cool. It takes the focus away from score building and combo tracking, and just lets the platforming shine. If you win, you win. You don't have to worry about an optional platform or anything like that, you know? If you want to go treasure hunting, you absolutely can, but the game doesn't force it or even suggest it, you know? The secrets are crazy hard to find sometimes, so, you know, good luck. The music, as always, it just fits so well. It's kind of tense, kind of funky, kind of trippy, kind of relaxing in some ways. It's really fitting for the new vibe this world brings. Loads of fun all round. Visually, this world is nuts. Aside from the obvious trippy visuals of platforms being invisible or mirrors having extra things to see, the whole world has a sort of fantasy zen spa feel about it. You know, I can imagine tons of Tinsies hanging out here and just vibing together in another situation, or running around with clipboards, having meetings. You know, it just kind of feels like a magical, chilled out office in a way. I don't know, it's really hard to describe. I've always wanted to live there. I've always wanted to visit the longest shortcut and just exist there. It's hard to explain, it just feels clean, fresh, untampered with, and overall just really pleasant to be in following the dingy Canaran world. I love the longest shortcut, and I always did as a kid. I used to boot up the game sometimes with no save files because I've reinstalled it or just deleted them because I'm an idiot, and plough through the rest of the game just to get to these levels because I loved the platforming challenges so much. If Rayman 3 were to get extra content added in this remaster that's coming very, very soon, I'd love to see a bunch more levels in this world. Or even just mini games, like make some more challenge maps, man, it's so good. Anyway, I have nothing bad to say about this world. It is placed perfectly in the game, it is a ton of fun, and it is going in S tier, I don't care what you say. Can you tell that I like this game, by the way? So I guess I have to ask again, will Rayman 3 keep up the momentum for even longer? Kind of, I guess. The Summit Beyond the Clouds is such a strange world. It starts off with that weird boat level, which is... I get it, I just don't like it. Maybe it's me, but this level went on far too long and never changed up the gameplay. I like finding the few gems that are here, and it's always fun actually seeing part of the journey between worlds in games like this, but surely this could have been more fun. Like, I don't know. Following a whole world of funky platforming gameplay, I'm always eager to get back into the juice of the adventure, and spending 5 minutes on a boat blindly hitting cannons isn't really my idea of fun. I don't actually know the general consensus on this part of the world. Do people like the boat section? If you do, then hey, that's cool. I personally don't, but if you do, I'm happy for you, because someone spent time making this, and it would be a shame if everyone in the world didn't like it, you know? Following this, we make it to the snowy wonderland part of the game. Man, this is the good stuff. You kick off this section scaling a hill, having to avoid giant snowballs because why not? All while the filthiest winter beat plays in the background. The atmosphere in this world is immaculate, by the way. I love it so much. I know I've said those words, I love it so much, so many times, but man, I made a YouTube channel all about Rayman. I clearly love Rayman, and I clearly love Rayman 3, don't I? You could have the most dull, tedious level design here, and I would still love the world for the visuals, sound, and vibe. But guess what? The level's design is great, mostly. I particularly love the bit where you go down the mini ravine sort of thing. You go through a door to get the lockjaw power up, and then you have to swing back up the ravine again. This makes the level feel so much bigger and more connected. There's not a lot of backtracking in this game, so it's fun to see it implemented a few times here and there. Otherwise, this world has a nice set of challenging Hoodlum encounters. Some great platforming, a lot of varied uses of every power-up. It's tons of fun really, and it's a very special world. It is, however, quite short, but don't fret because getting to the end of the world is no bad thing because you get to go snowboarding. I don't know who thought this level up, but I want to give them a kiss. Glowbox is a frozen ice cube and you need to race him to get to this hole so you can both escape. Sure, why not? Except there are obviously hoodlums and obstacles and occasionally a gem to collect. Oh yeah, and just a killer soundtrack. I don't need to ask the internet to work out the general consensus of this part of the level. It's so good. It's such a great way to end the light-hearted second act of the game before throwing you right back into the action of the third act, because it doesn't slow down after this. I could play many more levels like this, but saying that makes me think of something that Rayman 3 does really well that a lot of games don't. A lot of the best parts of this game only show up once. The snowboarding is a one-time thing. Most boss fights are unique and a one-time thing. The platforming challenges are exclusive to that one world, and perhaps for the better, the boat section is a one-time thing. The underwater segment is a one-time thing. Sure, the mini shoe segments and the funky board levels repeat, but for the most part, a lot of the gimmicks are used once and are never overplayed. And you know what? Here I am 21 years later saying I could happily do with more. The developers knew when to stop. They kept so much of this game unique and special. You don't see a lot of that anymore. Anyway, the summit beyond the clouds unfortunately is let down by the boat level, but after that it is near perfect, so I'm giving it an A. The Hoodlum Headquarters. Things get serious here. We're in the final two worlds of the game and it is going to get difficult. It's going to get nasty. It's industrial, it's spooky, it's awesome. I never used to like this world as a kid because I felt like it went on forever on account of being 5 and constantly failing. But yeah, it rocks. The platforming is tough and fast paced, the combat is never ending and harder than ever. The secrets are so well hidden and such a treat to find, especially the big Rayman 2 Easter egg mural thing. It's a ton of fun from start to finish. Not perfect at all, but so good. The opening throws you into a dangerous area with hoodlums and hazards all around, and it just never stops, really. Glowbox gets kidnapped and you have to work your way through the whole place, taking down numerous hoodlums in each room. It's just exactly what it needed to be. Gets you back into the main bulk of the gameplay, and ups the ante quite considerably. I love it. The vibes here are fantastic too. It's got a very distinct red, industrial, horrible visual look, and the music and sound effects align perfectly with that, coupled with the voiceovers throughout. It's just a treat to run through. This world actually has a mini backtracking style section too, where you have to go up and defeat a hoodoo before... Hoodoo? Hoodoo? That sounds wrong, but I swear it is. Hoodoo. Yeah, you know them ones that create the shields? Yeah, them. You gotta kill one of them. A bit of backtracking, world feels connected, that's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, look at this. The floor is essentially lava, you have small platforms, tons of enemies. This world is such a treat, I love it. You encounter a lot more of those bigger, angrier hoodlums as well, but by now they're easy enough to defeat, so they're kind of not like boss fights like they were the first time you saw them. There's also a fun first-person shooter style section in the shooting range, which is quite fun. And then there's Andre. This might be controversial. I love this boss fight. I mean, obviously I hate it, but I love it, you know what I mean? It's so frustrating and I've never done it flawlessly. Like, it's always a fair few attempts to get that meter up, but it's just so fun. Why I think it works, and is actually specifically frustrating, but in a good way, is that it's fair. If you know what you're doing and you have a pattern of movement, you can do it easily. You don't randomly fail because the game is unfair, you fail because it's just really hard to keep that movement pattern consistent. I like it a lot, it's hard, but it should be hard. Anyway, following this is one of my favourite levels in any Rayman game ever. It's a water rising level. They're so good, man. Rayman 2 has a couple of these, and if I ever do a Rayman 2 level ranking, you'll see these pretty high up there. You've got fast-paced platforming that throws nearly every kind of obstacle your way while toxic water is rising up and destroying the ground below you. I just can't not enjoy these kind of levels, you know? It's so fun. Anyway, I can't give this world an S tier because I personally find a lot of the levels indistinguishable from one another, except the ending of course, and even when I know what I'm doing and I'm no longer a 5-year-old that can't actually get past the game, I do feel like this world does actually drag a bit. Maybe if each section was a little more unique it wouldn't feel this way, but it does feel quite long with very little variety until the end. So with that big, glaring, horrendous, game-ruining issue in mind, I'm giving Hoodlum Headquarters an insultingly, embarrassingly low A tier, which I have a feeling is probably higher than anyone else in the Rayman community would put it, because yeah, there's really not much wrong with this level. I guess I have to reiterate this before we get to the final section. Rayman, if you couldn't tell, holds a very special place in my heart. I played Rayman 2 at just 4 years old and I loved every second of it. It was magical, it was crazy, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. And I remember very clearly the day I got Rayman 3. For some reason we'd driven what felt like 3 hours to go to PC World. I was only 5 though, so it was probably like 25 minutes in the car and it just felt like forever. I think my dad needed a new cable or like a new monitor or something, and you know, this was before you'd order everything online. But I was in the shop and I saw this rack of PC games, and on there was Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc. Now, I don't remember asking for it, I don't even remember picking it up, but my genius mother handed it to me when we got in the car and changed my life forever. Well, I guess that's a bit dramatic, but I stared at the box of the game the entire car journey back, and I played the hell out of that thing at 5 years old, and I've been playing it again every year multiple times since. I love it so much, and what's wild is I still prefer Rayman 2. It's just something about Rayman 3 that is so special to me. My point is, I love the game, far more than most people do, I expect. I know a lot of people think it's the weakest link in the franchise. So I am very likely to say a world is better than the general public think, because I think the game is better than the general public think it is. Anyway, I said this was a self-indulgent video from the start, and I wasn't lying, so if you're still watching this now, thank you. I'd love to hear how you first got into Rayman, if you've got any special memories like this from when you were younger. It's a really special franchise to so many people, and I just, wanted to get that out there. Anyway, enough of that soppy crap to justify giving Hoodlum Headquarters an A. I'm now going to say something probably less controversial. They nearly messed up the ending of this whole game. Man, what a hit and miss this world is. It's sad, because in a lot of ways the Tower of Lepus is a great final world. Some intense battles in big arenas make for a load of fun, large areas to explore and traverse, secrets to find, big statues giving such a sense of scale and grandeur. This feels and plays like a final world, and I fully commend it for that. In so many ways the Tower of Lepus is amazing. The music and atmosphere here is really cool. I love it a lot. The visuals though, aside from the big statues, it's kind of flat. It doesn't do a lot. It's not striking in the way every other world is. It, unfortunately, is to towers and caves what clearly forest is to forest levels. Samey and a tad forgettable. Well, also still a lot better than what most games have to offer in this sort of subgenre of themes, if that's what you want to call it. I don't know. If I think about the main levels in this world before the, we'll get into that, then I couldn't distinguish them. It's just grey, big, and slightly outstays its welcome, you know? But on the flip side, some of the battles are amazing and difficult and fun. The platforming is excellent. There's a cool water rising section again, which I loved. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. So much of it's really good. Oh yeah. Yeah, then there's that, isn't there? Oh man, come on. Why? Come on, I get it. Final world, you want to do something big and different to make the stakes higher or whatever. Just don't. Man, what the hell is this? An on-rails shooting segment as the final main level of the game. Come on. Was this meant to be bigger and they just ran out of time? You know, I'm not even mad because I don't like it. It's not great, but it's fine. Like, I have fun playing it. It's just that this fairly large section is how they chose to end the game. I like flying around, to be fair, that's quite fun, but the shooting sections on rails feels like such a cop-out ending. The music's pretty cool, but honestly this thing inspires so little interaction or care from me. Rayman 2 did a similar thing where it has a big final world where half of it is taken up by a brand new flying gameplay mechanic that had never been seen in the game before. I like the Rayman 2 one, mostly, but it still irks me that by the end you should be challenged on the skills you've been gaining the whole time, not given a brand new thing to learn that you know won't show up again, right? I don't know, a brand new gimmick to finish off the final level feels cheap to me. I don't like it. A game this well designed should have no problem creating a compelling and challenging final level that utilises the combat and platforming gameplay the game had previously exhibited. Christ, the end of Hoodlum Headquarters does it perfectly actually. Crazy precise combat based boss fights followed by high action precision platforming. What happened with the Tower of Lepus? Seriously. Anyway, that isn't quite the end. While it is the end of the main world, there is of course the final boss fight, because you do not get a 3D platformer without a crazy final boss fight. Oh man, I got some thoughts here. In fact, reading this out now, I think possibly about 20% of this script is dedicated to this final boss fight, so strap in. I guess spoiler alert for the end of the game. But if you've made it this far, you either don't care or you've played it before. And also, spoiler alert for Rayman 2's ending as well, because I'm going to bring that up a little bit. So let's get into it. I think Rayman 3's final boss fight against Reflux is one of the best boss fights I've ever had the pleasure of playing throughout my entire life. And I also think it is one of the worst ways to end a video game and is an insult to the rest of Rayman 3. I should probably explain this. You may already know the angle I'm taking with this, but basically Reflux's boss fight is split into two separate levels. The first of which involves Rayman on foot fighting Reflux in a set of 3 challenges. Firstly, we see the angry Canaran take on a new form from the last time we saw him. He's tougher and meaner and uglier, and he has a shield. The first phase of this fight is very similar to the one in the desert of the Canaran. You're on a round platform and you have to wait until you can hit his scepter. Difference is his attacks are dialed up to 11 and there is no way to cling onto the side and avoid them. So far so good. Music goes hard, the battle arena looks cool, the fight is tough but fair, and then you beat him, his health bar is down to the bottom, you've won. So the man takes the scepter, puts it in his back, grows huge, and round 2 starts. This is how a boss fight should be. He gets big, he gets scary, he gets ridiculous, he tests your skills. Where the first phase tested Rayman's skills in up-close combat and dodging, phase 2 tests the platforming and agility. You have to run around the whole arena while Reflux tries to hit you. He has a pattern, so if you learn his pattern this should be easy enough, but he gets more aggressive the lower his health is. This is tough. But again, very, very fair. So if you lose, it is because you are not very good at it. It's not because the game is cheating you, if that makes sense. You've been training for this. Loads of fun anyway. And at this point, we are happy. The final boss is nuts. We're on phase 2, it's hard, it's fun. Anyway, you beat him, and once again, he evolves. They don't make him like this anymore. Now you're being tested solely on flying. I like it. You've got a bunch of platforms disappearing after you, and you need to constantly be flying upwards to reach the missile and hit Reflux. Surely he's dead now, right? Nope. He evolves some more. And you employ the help of Globox in the hover car. Oh, good. So the first 3 phases of this fight absolutely rule. I love them. This is how you do a final boss. The final part, well, it uses that new mechanic we learned not so long ago. In fact, the final thing you do in this game is flying and shoot with this vehicle. It sucks. Now, if the gameplay mechanic was particularly good, then maybe I'd be a bit more forgiving, but it's not. It's a stupid addition to the final world that ended up being the focus of the final boss fight phase. Rayman 2 did this too. Why did they tease us with a proper on-foot combat section on top of the crow's nest, only to turn it into another flying section we'd only just learned how to do? It's so weird, and it didn't work in Rayman 2, and it doesn't work in Rayman 3. I mean, it's better in Rayman 3, but the franchise is really inconsistent with boss fights, and I think that's probably a topic for another video, because I've just hit the 50-minute mark of recording this. It's probably going to be edited down a lot more before you see it, but yeah, this is a long video, so I'm not going to add anything else unnecessary to it. Anyway, this ending is piss poor. You shoot at Reflux, probably die a few times because it's quite hard. He pauses to catch his breath, and you throw projectiles at tiny hoodlums. Again, brand new gameplay mechanic. Narratively, very cool. I like it. You know, you make him lose his power and then destroy some of it before he regains it. But man, they could have made this so much more fun to play. The first 3 phases should have been it. You could have ended it there. That would have been a fantastic boss fight. But no, you have to insult the game by ending it like this. Weird. Anyway, you scare Andre and the game is over, yada yada yada. I've talked a lot about this boss, but quite frankly, this fight makes up so much of the Tower of Lepus that it was kind of needed. I am giving this world a B. It has a hell of a lot going for it, but it's held back by so much, and by the end of the game it really needed to be a little more fresh and exciting and not in the on-rails vehicle section way. Still, I like it a lot and I'll always beat the final boss. You know, it's not so bad I would give up on the game or anything. Even if I don't like it, I'll do it. It's not the best, still love the game though, and still a satisfying ending, I suppose. So yeah, that's a journey through the whole of Rayman 3. This really was a self-indulgent excuse for me just to gush about one of my favourite games. But hey, if you're hearing this, then clearly you cared enough to stick around for a long time, and that's awesome, thank you. Currently we have 3 worlds in S tier, 3 in A tier, 2 in B tier and 1 in C, but how do they rank on their own? Well, from worst to best, in my opinion, of course. The Bog of Merc is far and away the worst. I like it, but it's disjointed and uninspiring. The Tower of Lepus is next. Again, I like it, but I have made my issues very, very, very clear by now. Next up, Clearly Forest. Nothing majorly wrong, just not amazing. Then Hoodlum Headquarters. A lot to love here. It's just a little samey in some places, and the rest of the game is so damn good it just can't compete, despite being like a really, really good world in any other game, you know? The Fairy Glade comes in at number 5, bang in the middle, and since I already said this world is basically perfect, you can really see how much I love this game and how phenomenal the rest of the game is. 4th place must be Summit Beyond the Clouds. So fun and really special all round. Every game should have a winter world, but none of them would be as good as this, so hey ho. And now the final 3 S tier worlds. In 3rd place we have The Longest Shortcut. Amazing platforming challenges. No notes. It's just not quite as good as 2nd place, which is the Desert of the Canaran. Huge world with so much to offer. It's scary, it's fun, it's all round just an amazing mid-game challenge, but of course in 1st place, a surprise to no one and probably the most commonly chosen number 1 spot for very good reason, the Land of the Living Dead. In my opinion, the greatest world in any 3D platformer I have ever played. This world is perfect. That's my list. I hope you got something from this video, whether it was some insight into someone else's opinion, or just a nice trip down nostalgia lane as we went through the game, or even just some background noise while you did something else. I know I like to listen to people rambling about stuff they like while I'm getting on with things, so hopefully this video can do that for at least one person. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please let me know down below what your order is, and are there any worlds you love or hate? Anything you'd change? Let's get conversations going. Maybe I'll make a video like this for Rayman 2. But until then, stay awesome, stay purple, stay limbless, stay ranked, and I'll see you in the next video.